Welcome to Change for Good. It is Thursday, June the 4th. It's 11 o'clock here in Toronto. And today I have the great pleasure and privilege of speaking with Manju Menon, who's the co-founder and the CEO of an incredible organization called NuSocia. Based in India, they are an impact advisory and strategic social responsibility design company. And welcome, Manju.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. I have been following your series, and I'm delighted to be a part of this.
Well, I'm so excited, and Manju and I know each other from a little while ago because I have also the great pleasure of serving on the advisory council of your organization, NuSocia. And I should also just mention, for everyone here, that you are someone who's got an incredible depth of experience in designing and executing and helping to scale community-based projects in India. And we're so fortunate to hear from you today. And as you know, we created Change for Good because we wanted, in the context of COVID, to create a place of real inspiration and a place of community and a place where nobody knows what's really going on, but the conversation and listening to the experience of people like you is so valuable to me and to everyone here today. So that's why we're here. So we really appreciate it. And also wanted to say to everybody here that it's not just a conversation I'm having with Manju, and it's our hope that everyone, as we are listening to what Manju and I are talking about, if you have any questions, if you have any ideas, don't hold back. Please share them, and we'll do our best to get to as many as we can. So, Manju, I'm sitting here in Toronto. You're sitting there in India. And what city are you in today? Where are you located?
I'm based in Bangalore, which is one of the southern, which is called as the IT city or IT hub of India.
So you're there. I'm here. We're all in the middle of this, and in different ways. But I think that people would love to hear what you're experiencing personally. You're at home. I'm at home. Tell us what it's like to be in the middle of this very unusual crisis for you.
So, yeah, thank you, Paul. As you rightly said, COVID is one of those unique events that has kind of affected and impacted everyone, some people more than others, in either economically, physically, psychologically, and even nature has got impacted. Albeit positively. Personally, for me, things be quite good, I'd say, because I'm someone who wears different hats in my role as an entrepreneur, researcher, a family maker. These roles earlier had some sort of a physical and time boundaries. But however, with COVID, I see that these boundaries kind of vanished and things have become pretty hectic. I wouldn't want to complain about this, but I think, I have my hands full with work and a purpose to follow, which I think is the best thing to happen in a challenging time like this. And as you know, India has seen one of its longest lockdown, more than 60 days. But fortunately, there's some arrangements which were done by the government, so I could manage. So I think I've coped up well with the new normal. I would put it that way.
And how is this affecting your team's work and how you're communicating with them and what you're able to do? You're doing important work all the time anyway, and how is this affecting that?
So fortunately, Paul, our company, NuSocia, we have always been a remote working organization with our teams working across different locations. So work from home has not been a new thing for us. So that didn't come as a shock for us per se. But that being said, some of our work in terms of our deliverables got pushed a bit because it involved a lot of ground level researchers. And we have been trying in the last couple of weeks to continue delivering those projects by figuring out innovative ways of doing those researches. So we are continuously figuring out in terms of how do we, how do we react to these challenges, and how do we respond to being a responsible organization for our clients.
And your work as in your team, you're working in communities, in India, and you're working, I think, in situations that were difficult to start with, where you've got a huge number of people who are, a lot of poverty, there's a lot of vulnerability in those communities, and the work you're doing is addressing that. And of course, we're seeing that COVID is contributing to even more vulnerability for people who are already in a difficult situation. Can you share, like, what are you actually seeing on the ground in the communities that your team is working in? You talked about having to work differently. What is exactly happening there that we might not know about?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting question because India is a very complex country, I put it that way. And our team is actually spread across different cities of India today. So, just to give a perspective, I mean, the country with its sheer size and population, cultural diversity, it's like similar to or like a full European Union itself. And just to give a perspective, the city Bangalore, where I'm connecting, today, it has a population of almost similar to Belgium or more than Sweden or Greece put together. So, and this is not even the biggest city in the country. So the kind of population that we have, which essentially means that there are still a lot of people out there who are experiencing vulnerability, and they have been pushed to the margins now. So every day it is a challenge that is in front of you to see that the social fabric is getting impacted. And I think that's the case with almost every country in the world today. But that being said, I would like to pick up few specific things to explain how things are happening in India. For example, on the health perspective, because COVID is a health pandemic at the end of the day. So the country kind of decided, the government decided that we would enforce a lockdown quite early, and we did it for almost 60 days. And I thought it was a very good idea because we got some time to actually prepare for a pandemic like this, which otherwise would be a very overwhelming thing for a country like us, where we have a patient to doctor ratio of 1,000 to 1. So which is unimaginably low. So that, I think, was something that we could do. But and for example, in education, we have been continuously now trying, since our schools are reopening after summer vacation, we are trying to figure out how do we, how do we respond to the needs? How do we go back to normal? How do we extend these classes to children, especially in rural areas, who are still not very comfortable or do not have access to internet and mobile phones? So some of these things are there. And I think the most important impact has been on the livelihoods. And I think that's unemployment and layoff is something that is there with every country. But India has a very peculiar system where we have lot of interstate migration or intrastate migration which is happening, and especially people migrating from rural villages to cities in search of jobs. So with the lockdown, suddenly all of these people were left with no income, not a proper place to stay, and not even having 2 meals per day. And because they cannot afford to stay in an expensive city, they were pushed, or rather they wanted to go back. And the borders were sealed and there were no transportation. Some of them even had to walk back to their villages. So I think that was a painful thing to really observe. However, uh, since now that we are coming out of the lockdown, we see that there are a lot of inputs coming from the government in terms of reviving the economy per se. So I believe things will change in the coming few months. But yes, it is a slow process, but yes, it's going to change in the coming few months.
One of the things that's so interesting to hear about this, that one of the things that you said make me think about is, so one of the things that is, you see happen in a crisis is people changing and pivoting, and we've seen that in social organizations here and businesses and even in government as well. Are there some examples that you have in India from in your work or beyond of organizations in the context that you just described? How are people responding to that? Where is there innovation that you're seeing? Are there things that are coming out of this that might be useful for the future?
That's a very important question that everyone is probably trying to answer, right? Because somewhere down the line, there's a complete change in the way social, space has been looked at now. Because we always had a problem, because being a country which has a huge population and a significant people still vulnerable, we knew that we had problems. We had challenges imparting education, health, and other things. But that problem suddenly become a little more adverse for us.
Mm-hmm.
Being said, India is also a country which has where the social entrepreneurship is blooming, right? So we have always seen the last almost a decade, we've seen very, very interesting initiatives across sector from social entrepreneurs who are trying to innovate new solutions. So from that perspective, I see a lot of innovations are going to come, and we can see a lot of solutions which are coming up. But one of the major change in the narrative per se is that we suddenly, we realized that the way we have been growing is unsustainable. And one of the core focus for us today is to provide dignified livelihoods in arresting migration. And we're speaking today about how to make local development. So in a few months before, this whole concept of smart cities were very prominent in India. Today, the government is speaking about smart villages. So from a government's perspective also, things slightly, the narrative has been shifted. From a non-profit perspective, I would say that there is a scenario where nonprofits are now pushed to rather or thinking about how to make their systems more efficient, because the challenges are many and the resources are going to be limited. So everybody is trying to figure out ways and means of using technology to solve some of these problems, and how far and how fast they can accommodate to it. So I think building innovative service delivery models across health, education, and all the other basic needs, and making it accessible and affordable to the people out there is going to be the challenge that I think everybody is going to take up. And I'm sure that we already have signs of some very interesting innovations happening. And I'm sure in the next few months, we will have more of such examples coming from the country. I'm very positive about it.
Well, it's great to hear. And, I share your, in the context of, something so difficult there, I share your optimism for change. And these are things that we've been talking about, I think, for a long time. Some of these things, like how do you address some of these issues? And I think some of these ideas have been floated and not taken far enough. And one of the things that I think is particularly interesting there, that I've never been to India. I'm certainly not familiar with it in any way, really, like you are. But one of the things that we're wrestling with here, which I think there's one similarity, an important issue, is sustainable transportation. And you've got cities there, as you said, the city you're in is as large as Belgium, and issues around transportation, and the fact that we've seen here, there's been a lot less when commuting, there's a lot less people driving, and the environment is obviously actually improving as a result of that. I know that there's significant air quality issues in Indian cities. Are you getting a sense that there's actually some positive environmental impact?
Interestingly, I mean, that has been a very interesting, outcome of the lockdown. I would put it that way, because there are a lot of positive, I would say, glimpses of nature that came to us from across the country. I mean, a lot of social media were flocked with images where people are able to see the Everest. We were able to see some birds flying, which were not there visible for so many years. So we have so many nice examples of how nature has retreated back, especially in India.
Mm.
But that being said, we still have to wait and see whether this changes. I mean, are we going to really put that extra effort in not going back to the normal which we were having and learning something out of the entire lockdown, or are we going to make some considerable changes in the way we live, right? For example, for transportation, for example, I work in the field of transportation on a project. So uh, we have been speaking about shared mobility for a long time, and and we have been working in the field of clean technology promotions for a long time. So we were, and for a second, we were thinking whether this will be still a relevant issue in India. But fortunately, what I come to know is that companies are, and the government is still pushing the clean technology promotion, etc. So I'm hopeful. I would say I would want to stay positive, and hoping that some of these good aspects that we happen to see in the lockdown stage, especially the way the nature is retreating, we would still want to retain a part of that. And I'm since hoping that we would do some, preserve it. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Maybe I want to just change gears a little bit to get into the role of business in COVID and in social change there in India. One of the things that is different about the context for business in India compared to many other countries is there's a regulation in India. Businesses have to contribute a certain percentage of their profit to social responsibility. So how are you seeing that playing out in the context of COVID? Are corporations stepping into this, and what are they doing?
So, I mean, as you rightly said, we have a mandate by the government here in India since 2013 that companies have to keep apart a significant percentage of their profits for social activities. And that has significantly increased or substantially increased the outlay of funds which are available for nonprofits and other initiatives in the social space. And so during the pandemic, during the lockdown, because of the sheer size of the challenge that we have, government also set up some funds, COVID relief funds, under which they declared that the donations to these funds could be seen as a CSR donation. So thereby we saw a huge traction of big and small companies contributing to this fund alike. So that's one significant contribution from corporate that we saw in the last 2-3 months. But besides that, there are companies which have done a lot of good work with their own on self, right? For example, just to give an example, one of the biggest and oldest business group in India called the Tatas, they have committed approximately some 200 million USD for COVID related activities, uh, and have arranged PPE kits and testing kits for the government. And they're a large conglomerate. They have hotels as well, so they opened up their hotels some of these doctors and health workers were fearing to go back to their home daily because of obvious for their family. So these hotels were opened up, and several other hotels were opened up for staying, for taking care of these health workers. Similarly, we have PepsiCo Foundation, who has PepsiCo, which has partnered with their NGOs in India, which has I think provided more than 5 million meals and some 25,000 COVID-19 kits across the country. So we have plenty of positive examples how corporate India has stepped up and have contributed in different ways to kind of overcome the situation. Yes.
And how about the ways in which these organizations like Tata, huge business. Have you seen any examples of how their innovation or best practices in terms of how they're treating their own employees and in this crisis?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would also like to state that there are some companies which have gone ahead and even they have declared their bonuses for their family, for their employees, and their companies. For example, the company that my husband works with, which is again a Tata Group company, has not even they have maintained that they will not have any layoffs, and they will not even, and all the I mean all the employees, all the campus placement, because we recruit a lot from the university campuses, so they have gone ahead and they have taken up all the students whom they have shortlisted and have agreed to recruit, which I think was a very bold step to take, not just to take care of the people working with you, but all of those people who were eagerly waiting to join you. So I think some incredible examples are there out.
I love that, and that's incredible leadership. And it might be a little early to ask this question, but I'll ask anyway, which is, so you see companies that are leaning into this crisis. A great example with, I think it's very encouraging on the recruiting side and focusing on employees and contributing sometimes large amounts of money to this disaster, this crisis. Do you have a sense of what it's going to be like afterwards, in terms of the way businesses are investing in social change in India? Is that going to see that changing in the future?
So again, I mean, it's a fact that business has been impacted, and a lot of companies, I mean, the contribution to CSR is still linked to their, their revenues at the end of the day. So I would be happens in the CSR outlay for the coming years, or maybe this, it wouldn't surprise any one of us because it is related to the revenue coming from the. But that being said, I still would like to take examples of organizations who have never linked their CSR work or their their foundation works with their revenue, annual revenue, for example. So I believe those organizations, those companies would continue to fund their commitments, irrespective of how their business have run. That's one hope. And secondly, I think in the longer run, the businesses need to revive and survive, and having a positive societal image is going to be all the more important, because I think COVID is one event which has impacted people, and everybody has gone through it and seen through it closely. So this should mean that a lot of companies would want to do something meaningful on a long-term meaningful manner, so that their impression as a responsible company need to stay there, because end of the day, the customers would want to see how the companies behaved. So, so that ways, I think there is still a scope, and I'm very positive that I don't think companies do have an option of not doing CSR, and that's my hope, and which keeps me, forward. Yeah.
The other thing that has come up in our conversations here in the Change for Good conversations over the last many weeks are about the roles of the different sectors. You've got NGOs, civil society organizations in India. The government has stepped into this more, and the corporations are I think starting to act a little bit differently. As you said, there's a hope that's going to continue. I hope it does. The other thing that I think is super interesting is how these sectors are working together. And I know a lot of your work and NuSocia is involving creating these partnerships. Do you have a sense of, is that starting to look different, or where is that going? How are you going to be approaching partnerships in the future?
So I think, Paul, we have been looking partnerships more. I mean, I think even when we speak about SDGs, right? So the very essence of having that, the SDG goal of partnerships and collaboration is that the kind of challenge in front of us is so big that individual organizations or even institutions cannot handle that alone, right? So I think that spirit of collaboration is something that need to become stronger in the coming days, because we are all setting into a world where resources are going to be shrinking, especially the resources for maybe for COVID-19 relief. Maybe we have got we have received immense support from all walks, all kind of stakeholders. That doesn't stop the challenges are long term in nature. So that means we have all the more reason to collaborate. And when you have lesser resources, it is better that we collaborate with each other and make something more significant. And I think India is seeing a lot of collaborative projects. And I think the openness to collaborate and coming up with strategic initiatives is a trend which is coming up in India, which has not been there much maybe a decade before, but is something that is increasingly being seen nowadays. So I just hope that we see more of those examples. That's one area that we are specifically working on, and we are in continuous dialogue with our stakeholders to look at the significance and the benefits of collaboration, especially in a post-COVID scenario where resources are going to be limited.
And so it also makes me think about with, your role and NuSocia's role there itself in the context that you just described. Here we have organizations, actually NuSocia in some ways and Impact are, sort of similar. And I still haven't figured out, I know that we have to be a little bit different, but I'm not sure exactly what that is yet. But in terms of your thinking about NuSocia itself and how you can best contribute to social change in the situation that you've described, what can you share with us? What could we look forward to from NuSocia?
Okay, that's a very interesting question, and I still do not have a complete answer to this, because we are still trying to, figure out all the ways we can probably collaborate and make that necessary impact out there, and how do we facilitate that for our stakeholders. But one thing is that I would, so as a facilitator of impact, my role or the organization role is to actually give that confidence to the stakeholders that are possible, right? So the new ways, that's where I think we have to write a new narrative, because sometimes we always do the and that is what I'm preparing right now. Honestly speaking, that's what NuSocia is preparing, how to organize itself, how to look at organizing research, for example. So and some of our activity involves ground level research. So how do you do researches in very remote rural areas, um, um, where we respect social distancing, physical distancing, and we are able to complete them effectively? How do we how do we organize trainings, online trainings? How do we convert physical trainings into a blended training module, for example? So these are continuous work in progress. I still do not have a complete answer to it, but we have started to find an answer to this already. And I think I'm very positive that there are, yes, it's not me alone, it's not NuSocia also alone. We need to also learn from other people around us. So I'm also collaborating. I'm trying to speak to people and understand how this could be together solved. So we are keeping our eyes and ears open, I would put it that way.
I will, for sure. Like Manju, again, thank you so much for participating in speaking with me today. I find it so interesting on many levels. One is this hearing some of this, we're very far apart, but a lot of things are very similar at the same time. And I know that we'll continue to learn a lot from each other as we go through this, because all these questions, we don't have the answers to this, but that's why hearing from people like you is so important. So thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it. And thank you,
Paul.
Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Paul. I mean, I said it's a delight to be here and getting a chance to speak with all of you. Thank you.
Well, and also to the whole team at NuSocia. I've met a few folks there at a distance, at an extreme distance actually in this case, but you know, it's a wonderful group you have here, and it's been a very nice opportunity to connect some of our great folks at Impact with some of your people there. It's just only good, and I hope we can collaborate, and I know we'll collaborate more in the future. And also for everyone listening today, I wanted to just make sure that you all know that we'll have a copy sent to you later today or tomorrow of the conversation that Manju and I have had today, and you can use that, share it, and listen to it. The other thing that you'll get is a notice of next week's conversation, which is going to be with someone who I've known for a long time and I've respected for a long time. We've worked together, and his name is Craig Ryan, and he is the Director of Social Purpose Entrepreneurship at an organization here in Canada called BDC. Craig is also a champion of the B Corp movement and has done super great things in helping to advance the B Corp world here in Canada. So I'm really looking forward to speaking with him. So I encourage everyone here to register and sign up for the conversation with Craig next week. In the meantime, continue to ask the questions like Manju has shared with us today. We're all trying to figure it out, and very much hope that everyone here today, you know, just picked up a couple little things that they might be able to use in their own organizations. Thank you for participating, Manju. Thank you for everyone being here today, and look forward to seeing you next week.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.